So everybody, this is a guided walkthrough for the DC01 machine from the HackMyVM.eu website. All right, so let us begin. And so DC01 has been deployed to our network, but we don't know where it is. So we need to find out where on the network that it exists before we can hack against it. So we're just going to run a little nmap scan, and we're going to scan the network range over here to figure out which IP address on the network this machine has. So we're going to run this, and it looks like, okay, so we're going to scan the network range. Okay, now this is what is actually going on. So we've got a machine on 192.168.212, and this should be the machine that we need to hack against. So we can find out our own IP address with IPA, and our own IP address is, oh, we don't have an IP address. Huh. Okay, looks like we need to start up our DH client. Okay, now we should have an IP address. Now we have an IP address here, great. Now what we're going to do is we're going to run a little nmap scan against the machine that we found. I think the address was number 12, and we're going to run it with these arguments right here. So it is T4, very verbose. We're going to run common scripts and versioning information, whatever we find. We're going to run it against all ports, and we're going to run it fast but not very fast, and we're going to run it very verbose, which means we're going to get output before scan finishes. Okay, so we ran the nmap scan, and let's take a look at the collection of ports that we found open. So we found some very typical Windows ports over here. So you've got 139, 135, 445, 5985, and a number of ports on the 40,000 range. And these are all very typical for Windows machines. A couple of interesting ones here are, I think 636 is LDAP, and port 88 is the Kerberos service. So that means that this Windows server is also domain joined. It's Active Directory domain joined. So these are typical ports for an Active Directory machine. And we're going to be talking a little bit more about Active Directory and Active Directory hacking in just a little bit. Okay, so let me take a look at my notes. Okay, so now because this is a Windows machine, we probably want to investigate the SMB environment. So SMB is the file sharing service that is used by Windows, and is it's very common to almost every Windows system, every Windows server out there. So what we're going to do is we're going to run a little program called NXC, and I think so. NXC stands for Netexec, and it's pretty much the most popular program for scanning against SMB against Windows servers on different protocols that are supported by Windows. So stuff like SMB or WinRM, even stuff like MS SQL and some other ones. Okay, so Netexec, we're going to run it against the SMB service on this server, and we're going to try giving an empty password, and we're going to see if there's a guest account on this particular server. So let's go ahead and do that. So we see here that we were able to log in as the guest user. You can tell that it's a valid account because we get this plus over here in the output. So what we can do from here is that we can use this guest account, and we can look for other user accounts on the system through a process called RID brute forcing. The Netexec program makes this very easy for us. All we need to do is give the same credentials over here, but this time we're going to specify we want to do RID parsing, just like this. So after we give this command, it's going to give us all sorts of users over here. So what we're going to do is we're going to save. So these are all users on the system. There's a lot of them. What we're going to do is we're going to save out this. We're going to save out this output to a file called users.txt. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to run this command. We're going to redirect this into a file called users.txt. And then we're going to use a special command to clean up the output. So what we're going to do is we're just going to give this command over here. So we're going to read users.txt, and then we're going to use the sed command to modify the output formatting slightly. And what we're going to do is going to output this into a new users.txt file. So we can go ahead and do this. After we've done this, when we look at .txt, it is a blank file. It is a blank file. Okay, well, interesting. Was this a blank file when did we start with the blank file? Oops, yeah, sometimes stuff goes weird. Okay, let's, so there's users.txt. Okay. So obviously all we want to do is we want to get this right over here, right? Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try feeding this into the AI, and maybe the AI can help us out. So there are all of these users over here. Let's go ahead and copy this stuff. Grab the very beginning of this. A lot of users. This is a list of users from the Netexec program. Please turn the list usernames. Okay. Then feed it the list. The message is too long. Okay. Actually, maybe we should just ask it for the command that we're looking for. Let's try giving this command. I think the reason why this command failed was because there was we didn't have a matching parentheses over here. Let's try this again. It didn't like this. Oh, it worked. I wonder why it didn't work the first time. Okay, so we've got a list of users now. We've got a list of users now. What we're going to do is we're going to try brute forcing the passwords for these users. So we're not going to do typical brute forcing with a big password list. We're going to do a technique that's called password spraying. And the type of password spraying we're going to use is this right here. We're going to use, let's see. So for the users here, we're going to do users. Okay, so we're going to run this against the list of users, user mods.txt, and this is also going to be the password. So there's a certain trend in Windows Active Directory environments where sometimes users use their own username as their password. So this is what we're going to check for here. So we're going to do this netexec command, we're going to do no brute, which means we're only going to be checking one password per user here. And we're going to continue on success. So if we find a valid password, it's just going to keep on going. Okay, so we're going to run this to see if any users have used their own password as their own username as their password. So I think we saw something, but because the output is so long, we weren't able to see what exactly happened there. So what we're going to do is we're going to run the same command, but we're going to grep out, that is grep v, on the failure message. So if the line includes the word failure, like it does for all these other lines over here, we're just going to omit those lines. Okay, and then let's run that again. Okay, so it looks like we've got a bunch of these guest users coming back as well. So we're looking for real users and not guest users. So we're just going to grep out the word guest as well. So we're going to do the same command again, but we're going to pipe it into grep v, and we're going to get rid of the word guest. So any of the entries with guest, we're going to get rid of those as well. Okay, so only one entry comes back after that. So we found a valid username password pair. So over here, got the ybob317 user, and they're using ybob317 as their password as well. Okay, so remember we were talking about this being an Active Directory environment. We know that this is an Active Directory environment because there is port 88 running over here, which is running Kerberos security. So this is a Kerberos server. Kerberos is what Windows Active Directory uses as their authentication method. And because Kerberos is running on the system, and we have a valid domain user for this for the Active Directory domain, we can perform an attack called Kerberoasting. So let's talk about what Kerberoasting is first before we perform the attack. So let's go over. So this is Active Directory Kerberoasting. Kerberoasting is an Active Directory that is an AD, credential enumeration method, which can yield AD service accounts, also known as SPNs, and their password hashes. So we're basically getting password hashes for these Active Directory service accounts called SPNs. SPN, Service Principal Name accounts, are service accounts meant for use in an AD environment and use Kerberos for authentication. In order to Kerberoast, we need credentials for a domain user account in an AD environment. And the domain user account that we found was this one over here, ybob317. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Here, okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing, but we're still using Netexec. So remember when I said that Netexec was a very powerful piece of software? So here we're not going to be running against the SMB service. We're going to be running against the LDAP service. So in this case, we're going to have the username ybob317. We're going to have the password ybob317. And we're going to do Kerberoasting attacks. So we're going to run this argument right here, Kerberoasting, and we're going to save the results to a file called output.txt. And we're going to specify that the Kerberos distribution, the key distribution center, which is the server that gives out the keys, is the same IP address here. So when we run this, we're going to perform a Kerberoasting attack and try to get the password hashes for the SPN users in the AD environment, which is the service accounts. So let's run the attack. And we're able to get different accounts. So we were able to figure out that there are, well, this is quite a few. Okay. So this is the SVC, file SVC account over here and its password hash. And we also have the firewall SVC service over here and its password hash. We have the backup SVC account and its password hash here. We have the web SVC SPN and its password hash, and the monitoring SVC and its password hash. So now that we have these password hashes, we can perform a password cracking attack and try to figure out what the original passwords these service accounts are. So if we're able to get the crack the passwords for these service accounts, we could potentially do more enumeration using these accounts on the system. So what we're going to do to crack these hashes is we're going to run hashcat. So we're going to run the hashcat program on all of the hashes inside of the output.txt file, and we're going to compare all these all the hashes against the passwords in the rocku.txt file. So the rocku.txt file is a list of 14 million common passwords, and when we do password hash cracking attacks, this is one of the common lists that is used, and we're going to run hashcat in this particular mode, so that it knows that it's that we're dealing with Microsoft Kerberos hashes. Okay, so let's go ahead and run the hash cracking program and see if it can crack any of these hashes. Okay, so this is going to run for a little bit. It's got quite a few hashes to run through. I think there were like 6 of them, which means that it might take a little while for this to complete. So if we were able to successfully Kerberoast and get those password hashes, it's a program to crack the password hashes for the SPN accounts for increased access to the AD joined hosts. So let's see if we managed to successfully crack that password. Let's go ahead and take. Okay, so we did manage to crack the passwords, and we see here in the output. So we managed to find the password hash for the file SVC user, and we see that the password is password 123 exclamation point. Okay, so this is this is a classic password. Okay, so let's use this password with Netexec and figure out what access this user has. So we're just going to run Netexec again, and we're going to run it with SMB again. But this time, we're going to give the password exclamation point, and let's put this between some quotes. Actually, let's put some single quotes. And the account that we're using is the file underscore SVC service. And what we want to do is we want to determine whether or not this is a valid account. This is a valid username and password on the SMB protocol. So we figure out this is a valid account because we get the plus sign over here when we try to log in with the Netexec program. So the next thing we want to do is we want to figure out if this user has access to any files. So this user is called the file service user. We're going to give the same command that we did before, but we're going to try to figure out what file shares they have access to. So we just do the same thing, but we give this argument here, dash dash shares, and it'll tell us what file shares they have access to. Okay, so it looks like we have access to one non-standard file share, and it's called backup. So what we can do is we can use the SMB client program to try to log in as the file SVC user and read whatever is in the backup file share. So it's going to be SMB client, and then the user is file service. We're going to go to this IP address right here and backup file share. It's going to ask us for the password. The password is password 3 double exclamation. And then we can take a look at what is in this file share. So there's a file in here called backupextract.txt. Go ahead and download that with the get command. So get backupextract.txt. Okay, now that we've downloaded it, we're going to exit out of here. And we see that the file is now in our current directory. So let's go ahead and read it. So what do we have here? So this is a list of other accounts. So there's a web server account, a database account, Citrix server, etc., etc. And we've got their file hashes. Sorry, their password hashes over here. So let's go ahead and format this a little bit so that we can separate this into a list of users and then a list of file hashes over here. And what we're going to do is we're going to run this command over here. So the first command is going to be this. We're going to read the backup extract file over here. Then we're going to use sed with this pattern here, and that's only this is going to output only the user names. And we're going to call this. We're going to save this into a file called backupaccounts.txt. So we can go ahead and run this. Take a look at backup accounts. See that these are the accounts. And then we're going to run another command to separate out the password hashes. So it's going to be this command over here. So we're going to use the awk command to only print out a specific field in backupextract.txt, and we're going to output that as the backup hashes.txt. So run the command, get the backup hashes. These are the hashes. So in particular, these are NTLM hashes, and these are the LM hashes. So there's one thing that you might notice in the original file. The original file was called backup extract. Yeah. So one thing you'll notice about these NTLM hashes is that the NT hash is always the same. It's always this. So you'll notice this for every account. Their password hash, the first part of their password hash, is always the same characters. So NT hashes are always the same. It's the LM hashes that are different for each one of these passwords. Okay, so now that we have the password hashes and the user accounts separated out, what we're going to do is we're going to run another password spraying attack. So password spraying is going to be, we're going to use the backup accounts, backup accounts.txt file as the username, and then the password hashes, the backup hashes.txt, and we're going to run this continue success and note So we're just going to do a password spray for each one of these backup account users and then their respective hashes to see if any of these are valid. Okay, so let's run the attack. Okay, so it looks like they all came back. Oh, you know what? There's a good reason why these all came back negative. So the reason is because we're specifying password in here, but we actually have to specify password hash. So let me do that again. So when we're using Netexec, we can use password hashes, but we can use passwords, but we can also use password hashes. So in this case, instead of P, we're going to specify capital H. Specify these are going to be hashes. So it's user accounts and hashes. So let's run this again. Okay, so we managed to get one. So here, the file server account and this password hash is a legitimate credential pair. So it says pwned over here. The reason it says pwned is probably because this is a admin level user. And let's go ahead and talk about what's going on here in the presentation. So our method of privilege escalation on this particular target is the administrator pass the hash attack. So pass the hash means that we don't actually have the password for the user, but we have the password hash. And sometimes we can pass hashes, and the protocols will treat the hashes exactly like they would treat passwords, and they will give us access. So if we have the password hashes for Windows users, there are several services that accept hashes in the places of passwords, such as WinRM. So if we can log in as the file server user with WinRM, we effectively have full control over the system. Okay, so what are we going to do? We're going to make sure that hold on. Let me get the command. Okay, so we're going to try the file server user, their password hash. It's over here. But we're going to see if we can, well, first of all, we should probably make sure that this is a valid account on the SMB protocol. This is the wrong IP address. The IP address should be this. Okay. So we see here that this credential pair, this username and this hash, it works for SMB. So if this works for the WinRM service, then we're going to be in very good shape. Okay. So the WinRM service is basically a way for administrators to log into a Windows server, and it uses a PowerShell terminal. So let's check if we have WinRM access as this user on the server. So we do have WinRM access, so we're going to be able to log into the terminal as this administrator level user. So let's go ahead and do that. So the program that we use to access WinRM from Linux is called Evil WinRM, and Evil WinRM is basically going to give us a PowerShell terminal on the server. So let's go ahead and begin. Okay, so we've logged in with the Evil WinRM program. And if we ask who am I, file server user. But what permissions does the file server have? Let's go ahead and so net user file server and see what permissions they have. What we're going to do is we're going to figure out it's who am I groups, right? Let's see, who am I slash. Okay, so we see here that that this current user that we're working as is in the looking for administrator group. They're in the administrator group, which means we effectively have full control over this box. Okay, so let's this is something we do every when we break into boxes and when we get root access on these exercises. We like to do a little bit where we pretend to be an evil hacker and talk about all of the vulnerabilities that we found on the system. So let's bring out scary hacker voice guy. Okay, here we go.
Hey everybody, it's me, Scary Hacker Voice Guy. Scary Hacker Voice Guy comes out whenever we break into the servers. And not only did we break into the server, we also have administrator access. Well, DC01 administrator, I guess you didn't configure your Active Directory configuration very well, because we were able to do Kerberoasting on your SPN accounts. Well, we were able to crack the passwords of these SPN accounts, and then we were able to get elevated access by stealing files. I guess maybe you knew about the vulnerabilities on your system, or maybe you accepted the risk. Well, you accepted the risk, and now we're in.
All right, so now we have administrator access to the account, which basically means we've finished this exercise. So all we need to do now is we need to enter the administrator user's desktop and grab the flag. So we're just going to go ahead and go into C users, and we see that there's an admin user over here. Let's try entering that directory and seeing if we can flag. Okay, so there's no there's no flag here. Okay, maybe it's in the administrator directory. Hold on. CD administrator. Okay, and then the desktop. All right, so the root.txt flag is here, but out of respect for the CTF organizers, we're not going to read the root.txt file, but we're going to pretend that we did by doing this. We're going to read the root.txt file and redirect it to a file called iReadRoot.txt, and because oh, that's weird. The size of iReadRoot.txt is not the same as the size of root.txt. So I wonder if they have the same contents. Okay, everybody, I'm just going to check that these two files have the same contents. I'm going to do it off screen, just so I don't reveal the flag on the stream. Just a second, everybody. So it turns out that the two files have the same contents, but for some reason the iReadRoot file is larger than the root.txt file. That's very odd. Okay. All right, so everybody, that was a guided walkthrough for the DC01 exercise from the HackMyVM.eu platform. Everybody, if you enjoyed this guided walkthrough, please click on the like and subscribe buttons on the video and leave a comment underneath the video. But until next time, HackerFrogs out!
Hey there, HackerFrogs! Are you enjoying this workshop? Learning new concepts and skills? If so, there's a way you can support the channel, and it's totally free. Just click on the subscribe button below the video. Also, click on the like button. And if you have questions or comments on this workshop, please leave them below the video. Thanks for listening. And now, back to our scheduled programming.